What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. You guys see the thumbnail? You guys see the title? I usually don't use that word, but I'm gonna use that word here. This video is about the only Norteño that I ever hated. It's extremely rare for you to hear me ever say the word hate. And maybe I didn't really, the true definition of the word hate him, but I think I kind of did. Couldn't stand this cat. I want to start the video by saying I started doing time in New Folsom beef facility, and there were Northerners there. I was also on a facility in Pelican Bay with Northerners. There was a lot of them there, right? I was in the shoe, Corcoran shoe, as well as Pelican Bay shoe with Northerners. And every time I was around Northerners, it was always respect. I know that people have it, people that have never been there, people have never been a part of it, people that were never around it. They want to make it seem as though North and South was just constantly at odds and, you know, it was always war. And the reality is there weren't a lot of Northerners, man. They would have never been able to, not that they didn't have the heart, because they definitely do, right? But they would not have ever been able to sustain an all-out war with the Southerners. There's too many Southerners. And it's counterproductive for that group to constantly stay at war and not be able to establish anywhere on the main line. So it's just common sense, man. Is there skirmishes? Were there skirmishes? Yeah, there was. But it was different. And I did a video about that. But I wanted to make sure that that you guys understand. I've done a lot of time. I did a lot of time around a lot of Northerners, and it was always respectful. Even when it's on, it's going to be respectful because it's business. It's not personal, right? So, getting back to this guy, man. I don't want to say his name, but I will say he's from Turlock, California. And there's going to be a lot of Northerners that are going to hear this and they're going to know who I'm talking about. Gunner knows exactly who I'm talking about. He was in YA with this guy. But I was in C10, Pelican Bay shoe. I was in C10. Scratch that. I was in C11, 1998. They had moved us from C2 to C11 because at that time, this was 1998, that's when there were the original thought of creating a short corridor for all the legends of all the factions. They wound up scrapping that idea and then bringing it back up, and they made it D1 through 4, D facility. Became the short corridor. But in 98, they said they were going to do it. They moved a bunch of people around, and that's how I wound up in C11. So I wound up in C11, and there were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 cells of Northerners in the pod I was in. And everything was respectful. And this guy comes, him and his cellie come, and they wind up being the 4th cell. I was upstairs in the shoe next to the shower. This guy from Turlock was on the other end of the same tier. There's only four cells on the top, 4 on the bottom in the shoe in Pelican Bay. And this guy, we're just going to call him Turlock. Turlock was a very, very fragile looking individual. Really bony. He had blonde hair, colored eyes. He was a white dude, but he was a Northerner. And I mean, put in work. He was not just some, hanging around type of guy. But one thing about him, he was very, very arrogant. For somebody built so frail, he was very arrogant and argumentative. He would debate anyone willing to debate him on the tier, but he had an obvious dislike of Southerners. And again, up there, everybody's really respectful. They have the open door policy where it's if the door cracks and there's not a threat, you just acknowledge each other. Hey, all right, how you doing? And that's it. As long as there hasn't been anybody being disrespectful, right? Well, one day, Turlock decides that he's going to start telling YA stories. And he talked about going to Nellis and stabbing a bunch of people. Now, as a Northerner being sent to Nellis, who do you think he's referring to? And so immediately, myself, my Sally, other Southerners in the pod, obviously we're not going to say nothing on the tier, but we have discussions when we come off our yard or shower. Hey, what's up with this fool, Holmes? Bragging about that shit. Because we don't do that. Nobody does that in there. You're in the shoe for whatever you're in the shoe for. It doesn't matter. You put in work. You're a man. But see, this little kid decided that he was going to talk about stabbing Southerners in the California Youth Authority without saying Southerners. We know who he's talking about, right? So he was talking about putting in work and like he was just invincible. But you look at this guy and you're like, what? And he had insinuated several times that that's his thing, stabbing Southerners. And I remember just thinking, like, if the doors crack, I'm gonna get them. And my Sally said the same thing. Hey, Holmes, we get on the tier with this vato, we're gonna have to get on him. The other homies in the pod all said the same thing. Hey, Holmes, we gotta get on this dude, eh? The cell directly below me, underneath my cell, was the security for the Northerners, for C11. And he came to my cell and he was like, hey, Holmes, my bad about this vato, I'm gonna try not to even engage in any kind of conversation with that dude, Holmes. I know you vatos are probably feeling a certain way, but like basically he was saying like I didn't know this vato was gonna take that conversation in that direction because he was talking to that dude, right? And I was like, hey, Holmes, you know what's up? Hey, it's all good, Holmes. Don't even trip. But they all knew, and I'm sure they told him, like, hey, all the Southerners in here, they're gonna try to move on you if they get the chance. And I don't think he gave a damn because he was a fool. But it was just so foolish to do it that way, right? To brag about that. When there were a lot of people there that could have bragged about getting at Northerners and doing things to Northerners, but there's a respect level that's supposed to be adhered to, recognized. We're all men in that dungeon. We're all trying to do our time as best as we can and not create more friction and more headaches, because at the end of the day, this was before they let everybody out. Pelican Bay Shoe, that was the home of the legends of all factions. And when you went there, you didn't stir the pot. You didn't create headaches for them in their pad. You went there, you did your shoe term, you gained knowledge, you became a weapon. Your mind became a cold weapon up there. It was a place to learn from those who can teach you the best, right? And everybody was respectful. Now, like I said, this cat would be on the tier arguing, debating other Northerners. And one thing that I've always acknowledged is Southerners will get into disagreements on a regular basis with each other. The ego, because everyone's equal. The Southerners will bump heads. You'll know when two Southerners don't like each other. When you're in that environment, right? They don't fuck with each other. You never ever really ever saw that with Northerners. Never hear Northerners argue with each other. I've heard them check. I've heard somebody with rank check one of his people. I've heard that. But as far as bumping heads and all that, no. So hearing this dude wanting to always debate every topic, every situation, everything had to be a debate with this cat. He had to outsmart you. He had to show you how intelligent he was. But it always came off as arrogant. And it was just more fuel to that fire of, man, I can't wait to get my hands on this dude. So I left that pod in 2000. That's when I went out to B facility. And then, I got out there in August of 2000. August of 99. August of 99. My true term had started in 97. I got out there in August of 99, August 1st. August 30th, I believe it was, when the whites and blacks thing happened. And then February of 2000 is when the Mexicans and the Southerners and the blacks had their issue. So I left that pod in 1999. And I don't know how long after that Turlock left. But at some point, I guess he wound up in Tracy. And I can only assume that his mouth, his arrogance, and his arguments caught up to him because he was murdered by other Northerners in Tracy. And this is just one of those things. I'm telling this story because how you conduct yourself, you never know what enemies you're creating. Because a real dangerous individual he's gonna smile in your face, laugh at your jokes, and he's gonna plot your downfall. He's not gonna let you know. Because you may get the upper hand somehow. And this individual was making enemies out of his own people for years. Imagine, this dude was probably telling every Northerner he met that he had put in more work than them and that they need to step their game up. And he was alienating himself. And it's hard for me to describe because he's passed on, and you don't want to talk bad about the dead. But the way he was built, it's amazing that somebody built like that could act like that. Because a knife can go through somebody like that, like a sword. I mean, a regular knife could go through him, and unfortunately for that young man, it caught up to him, and he lost his life on a prison yard. I don't know how much time he was doing, but his time stopped in Tracy. So another lesson for you guys: be humble. Always be humble. No matter what you do in life, whether you're trying to, live that type of life, or you're living, the square life out here, the normal life, whatever it is that you do for a living, let your actions speak for themselves. Be humble and be good at what you do. There's no future in being arrogant and being cocky and creating enemies. It's my video for the day, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out of here.